two halves. Now, what's interesting about this is that the halves are the exact distance apart that we need. So these two ribs are spaced so that the diameter here is the same diameter of our planet. And we're going to take advantage of that to place the ribs, the support discs that we will need to hold our ribs together. So let's go ahead and take a box, and hopefully by now you've predicted that the first thing we're going to do is change the height to 5 millimeters. And place this box over in the center, approximately the center. And what we want to do is we want to change the Y, or the width of this box, right, the Y direction, to 3.5 millimeters. We want to make sure that stays 3.5 millimeters. Now, let's go ahead and put this box in the very center of our ribs. So now we can go ahead and select the box, hold down Shift to select the ribs as well, and we're going to do align, and align it in the center in both directions. Next, we want to resize this rib. And in order to do this, we're going to have to use the midline handle. Alright, because we want to resize it in this direction and we don't want any other direction to change. So we use the midline handle here. It's solid black, and when we hover over it, it turns red. Hold down the Option key, and what that will do is that will stretch it out both ways. And we want to intersect it with the ribs here. And the exact amount that it intersects isn't critical, but it should be about 10 millimeters, maybe a little bit more. So this is the size of one of the support discs that we're going to need to create. So we should make a note of the length of this. It's 167 millimeters. Yours will be different. All right, so I'm going to make a note of this. So the support disc size, first one was 167 millimeters, because we're going to need that for later. Next, let's create a copy of this support disc by just pressing Command D while it's selected. So Command D creates a copy. Use just the up arrow to move it up. And this will let us keep it centered so we don't have to recenter it. If you do move it to the left or right, that's fine. You just have to make sure to use the Align tool to put it back in the center. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at this and resize it. All right, so again, we're going to use the Option, hold down the Option button, and pick that midline handle and drag it over so it's going about midway, maybe a little bit less into the rib. And now since we held the Option button, should do the same thing on both sides. All right. Now let's click off of that. Make sure you click off of it, then click back on and press Command D to duplicate it. And now use the arrow keys, and now let's bring this down. And if you hold the Shift button, you can bring it down faster to the bottom of your model. And the exact placement isn't critical here, but what is critical is the size. So this is 93, and this is 93. So let's make a note of that. 93 millimeters. And we're going to need 2 of those. So let's record that we've got 2 times that. So 2 of those. Keep track of those support disc sizes. So now what we want to do is we want to make the notches in our rib. So let's change these to holes. So we can select all 3 of these, change it to a hole, and then we can go ahead and select the rib and group it. And there we go. Those are our ribs. Now, in order to fit more on the sheet, we want them to all nest together tightly. So we want to get rid of this side over here. So let's create a box and change it to a hole, and just cover up that side. And then let's press Shift to select both of them and group it so that we only have one side of it. All right. Now, let's go ahead and place this in the edge here. All right. And select it and press Command D. And then use the arrow keys to bring your copy that you just made. Right? You press Command D to create a copy. And use the arrow keys to bring it out. And you want it to nest together as closely as possible with the one next to it without touching or overlapping. So you want a good 2 millimeters at least in between. So we can bring it back there. And now, if you keep this one selected, now if you press Command D again, it'll duplicate it and move it. So we can go ahead and let's create 7 of those. Keep pressing Command D to create additional ones. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So those are our ribs. We've created the ribs. Congratulations. Next, we want to go ahead and create the support discs. So the support discs are just going to be cylinders, and the size of the cylinders are going to be right here. So let's create the biggest one first. The biggest one is 167 millimeters. Let's go ahead and create this disc and change the height to 5 millimeters. And then the X and the Y to our dimension that we had here, 167 millimeters. 167 by 167. All right, and we can zoom out and let's place it in here. Keep it kind of tight to the others. All right. Then this is our larger support disc. Now, to conserve space, all right, we can go ahead and hollow this out, and we'll use the inner material here for one of our smaller discs. So the smaller discs are 93 millimeters. So let's go ahead and make a hole that's just a little bit bigger than that. Let's say 100 millimeters. I added 5 or 10 or something in between to the size. So create a cylinder, change it to 5 millimeters tall, and then change it to 100 millimeters on each side, and change it to a hole. And let's go ahead and align this hole in the center here. So align, let's click on this one because we want to align it to this one, bring it in the center here, and in the center here. And there we go, there's our hole. So let's go ahead and select both of these and group them together. Once that groups, we've got some room to go ahead and make one of our smaller rings, support rings. So bring it out here, another cylinder, change it to 5 millimeters tall, and change the dimensions to match the smaller support ring. 93 on each side, and let's align it in the middle. Shift and adjust, align, click over here because we want it in the middle here, here, and then we have these two. All right, here's a larger support ring, here's a smaller one. We need 2 smaller ones, so let's go ahead and select this, press Command D, and we can go ahead and drag this out. And now we have all the pieces that we're going to need for our skeleton model of the planet. So we need to prep this for laser cutting. First step is to bring out a box and take this box This box, we're actually going to make it, let's make this one slightly shorter. Let's make it 3 millimeters, and let's place it in the top left corner of our model. And let's drag it out so that it goes underneath all the parts we need to have. So let's go ahead and take a look at this and make sure that it is slightly larger than all of our parts. All right, but not too large. You don't want it much larger at all because it will waste material. So now let's go ahead and take all of the parts that we want and actually change all of our parts to holes. So we'll select all of these. Change them to a hole. And then we will hold down Shift again to select the red box and group everything together. And once it's grouped, that's what we need. So this is the file, the template that we need for the laser cutter. What I want you to do now is go to Design, Download for 3D printing. And when you do that, there's an option to download for laser cutting. So click this .svg and download it for laser cutting. And you might have to take a second to wait for that to download. Once it does download, you can go to the file and you can show in Finder, or you can just open up the Finder by itself and go to Downloads. And then you can drag it out on your desktop. And there's a link up on the board. I want you to upload the file to that link that is up on the board. Good luck. Let me know if you have questions.